Hi, and welcome back. My name is Dr. Mary Ann Shepard, and it's my pleasure to be back with you again. This month, we're talking about consequences, specifically punishment. And so, what exactly is punishment? Punishment is anything that decreases the future frequency of behavior. Okay, so punishment can be what we think of traditionally with punishment, like grounding and timeout and spankings and reprimands. That can be punishment, but really punishment can be a wide range of things. It can be attention. To some individuals is punishing. They kind of want to be quiet and under the radar, and being brought out and called out can be embarrassing to some people, and that can be punishment. And so you really have to look at, how does the consequence that you implement, how does it impact the individual you're working with? Do they find it reinforcing, or does it actually serve to be punishment and suppress behavior? So one thing that is so important when we're talking about punishment are the unwanted side effects of punishment. So we're going to pick on police officers here for just a few minutes, and we're going to use law enforcement as an example. So we're all guilty of breaking some kind of traffic violation. I myself tend to be a bit of a lead foot, and I often catch myself going above the speed limit. Or I often catch myself rolling through that stop sign. Now, I feel that I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I am a good citizen, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything intentional or intentionally trying to harm or put someone else at risk. However, if I'm cruising down the interstate at 5 or 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, and I see a police officer, it immediately changes my behavior, right? So I tend to slow down, make sure both hands are on the wheel, make sure my cell phone is out of reach or put away. And so I make sure that I'm doing my very best while that police officer is present. But then as soon as the police officer is out of view, what happens? What do? Well, I myself tend to hit that resume button on the cruise control and just speed right back up. So one of the problems with punishment is it only impacts behavior when whoever is delivering punishment is present. However, when they're not present, it does not impact behavior. So what you tend to see is that children act nice when they realize that a parent is present or a teacher is present. However, when the teacher or the parents are out of their room, or when they've walked away, you can welcome my dog here, when they've walked away, then you tend to notice that the behavior tends to increase, or it's not as controlled. So they're more likely to act out when whoever is delivering punishment is not present. So when your back is turned, when you're in the other room, when your hands are full, when you're busy, when you're looking away, all of those things. One of the things we also notice is if that police officer were to pull me over and he were to say, ma'am, you were speeding, and he were to give me a ticket, how would I react? Would I be happy? Would I be joyful that this individual is out there protecting me and protecting society and doing his job and keeping us all safe? No, I would be mad. I would be furious if he gave me a ticket. I would be angry. I would be sad. I would be frustrated. And so one of the things that we notice is when we do have punishment delivered, that it does tend to lead to these emotional or sometimes aggressive responses. And so one of the things you have to be aware of, when you deliver punishment, the child is not going to say, oh, thank you so much for teaching me to be a good citizen. They're going to be mad. They're going to throw a fit. Just like after you get a ticket, you call your person, your mom, your dad, your friend, your sister, your best friend, whatever, and you gripe, you complain, you commiserate over the fact that this man pulled you over and gave you a ticket on a bad day. Right? It also leads to some undesired modeling. And so sometimes if we're using things like physical punishment, so spanking or physical reprimands, a lot of times if the child just hit and then we spank them and say no hitting, especially if the child is very literal, this makes no sense. Why would you say no hitting and then turn around and hit me? So in some circumstances, it can lead to some undesirable modeling, or let's say the children are yelling and you yell and give a reprimand that says no yelling, and so you're reprimanding yelling while you're yelling. And then it's just very confusing to kids. Also, in some circumstances, especially in oppositional defiant disorder or conduct disorder, punishment can lead to increased noncompliance, especially with those really strong-willed kids that you just can't tell me what to do, when to do it, when not to do it. And so you have to watch for all of these undesired consequences of punishment. Another one that I didn't mention is if you know there's a police officer that's always sitting in a specific area of the road, you may slow down in that part of the road, but you may speed up or make up time afterwards. So if you've been caught in a speed trap, or you've been caught in construction, or you've been caught in a specific area, a lot of times you'll notice right after that area where there's traffic or construction, people are going faster or speeding more. That's because when behavior is punished in one area, sometimes it increases in another area. So if you're punishing at home, you may notice an increase at school, or vice versa. So you just have to make sure that when you're punishing, you're being consistent. So because of these negative side effects, how do we implement punishment effectively? What do we do? That's what this whole series is talking about. So please watch all of the videos. But I want to address a couple of things in this video in particular. You have to be consistent. So if you're going to implement punishment, you have to use punishment every single time. Last month, we talked about variable schedules of reinforcement. You cannot have a variable schedule of punishment. You have to have a consistent every single time. You have to implement the consequence. You can't sometimes implement the consequence, sometimes not. You've got to be very, very, very consistent with it. It has to be immediate. So you can have delayed reinforcement. You really can't have delayed punishment. So no, wait until your dad gets home, or I need to think about this, or we'll talk about this later. You need to know in your head ahead of time, what is the consequence going to be? And you need to have that planned out so that as soon as the behavior occurs, you have an immediate response to it. And there's that direct link. It's not delayed punishments. You really want to make sure that you're very immediate. You want it to be sufficient, but not excessive. So you don't want to say you're grounded for a week, or you're grounded for a month, or you're grounded for a year, because if you take away something for a week, what are you going to do tomorrow when the same behavior occurs? You can't take away another week, because then you end up in debt. So you really want to make sure that the punishment is immediate, but it's sufficient. So you don't want to be taking away a week of something or a month of something, because you can't expect a month of good behavior or a week of good behavior or a year of no problems. So you want to make sure that punishment, that there's plenty of opportunities to respond and plenty of opportunities for you to respond. So you want it to be sufficient, a 24-hour, or if we're looking at timeout, 2 minutes. If you're taking things away from older kids, 24 hours is usually a sufficient amount. So just make sure that you're being sufficient but not excessive. And you also want to be clear. You want to state the rules and the consequences in advance. So I want to know, if I speed, what's the consequence going to be? Well, it's going to be a warning or a fine, right? I don't have to worry about jail time or community service unless I'm speeding in a school zone. But you know what your consequences are for speeding. You know what the consequences are ahead of time. And so you want to make sure that you have consequences for your family that are stated in advance. Here's what our consequence will be. If you do X, here is what happens. So just make sure that you think about some of these things. How can you recognize the negative side effects of punishment? And how can you improve your punishment to be more consistent, more immediate, to be sufficient, and to be clearly stated in advance? I hope this has brought you some helpful tips and techniques. Please like us or follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. We'd love to have your ongoing participation in these, and I hope that this continues to help you to become a better teacher or a better parent. Thanks.